All right, let's bring in Ron Hosko, CBS News security analyst and former FBI assistant director, to break this down. All right, Ron, so the president is calling Comey a leaker, but Trump is the one who made threats about tapes on Twitter. What do you make of the accusation?
Well, I think in very broad and probably publicly consumable terms, Jim Comey admitted to being a leaker yesterday. I think it was one of the most...
Is that the right word, though?
No, I don't. It depends on how you define the terminology. Typically, when we're talking about leaks in the federal government, you're talking about leaks of sensitive national security information that has a possibility or a likelihood of harming our national security. So here, I don't think we're talking about that, nor do I think we're meaningfully talking about something that is a privileged communication. Certainly after the president himself has talked about it and tweeted about it, I don't think any court in the land would pay attention to a claim that that's subject to executive privilege.
Yeah, so explain that a little bit. Here you have a one-on-one meeting between the FBI director and the man he ultimately reports to, the President of the United States. It seems unusual for an FBI, it certainly is unusual for an FBI director to disclose these conversations, so why is that okay?
Well, I think in the mind of Jim Comey, it's okay because he saw facts and circumstances that led him to believe that the ongoing investigations were going to be insufficient, perhaps politicized, driven by politics, whether he meant within DOJ or elsewhere, and he was calling attention to what he believed to be serious misconduct by the nation's chief executive. And I think if you look at what's expected of government whistleblowers, that sort of thinking falls within that whistleblowing status. And one further reason why I don't think the president's intended complaint is going to have any traction at all.
All right, let's talk more about the complaint, because I guess the idea behind the White House complaint against Comey is really to raise concerns that he potentially violated his signed FBI agreement that prevents him from disclosing sensitive information. So to you, even though these memos aren't considered classified, are they considered sensitive and therefore, actually giving weight to this complaint?
Yeah, I think the precedent of the use of that statute or that guideline will be important here. Certainly you could make the claim with a straight face that a conversation, a private conversation between the President of the United States and the FBI director is a sensitive conversation if it relates to something other than family matters. So it relates to an investigation. I think you could broadly say that's a sensitive matter. However, we could get to a point where what's the more important outcome here? Which statute or guideline has to give way to the other? And if Jim Comey is standing behind this notion that what I was doing was relating information through the media about serious government misconduct at the highest level, i.e., that I think there was an obstruction case here as the president was talking to me and pushing me in the way that he did, I think that's going to survive any other scrutiny that's applied.
Comey didn't want to touch that question yesterday of whether it rose to obstruction of justice. The president, of course, claimed he was vindicated by what happened in the hearing. Seemed like another day of a lot of smoke, but no fire. So do we know what the special investigation is going to be focused on?
Well, I think the Mueller investigation will touch all things Russia, the broader influence piece, and I think it's going to encompass the relationship by the campaign to these key players. Now we're talking about Jared Kushner, Paul Manafort, Roger Stone, Carter Page, and others, and it's all going to be rolled up under Bob Mueller's authority because that authority is pretty broad, and I do not see this Department of Justice or the Deputy Attorney General trying to constrain it.
Do we think it'll include the firing of Comey? Because we know he gave these memos to Mueller. Do we think the firing could be part of the obstruction case or not?
I do think that Bob Mueller's part of his role will be to contemplate this firing and to look at it in terms of obstruction of justice. You have, as you said, I don't think there is a white-hot fire burning in front of us, even though we've had plenty of smoke. The terminology, the circumstances, the atmospherics are all very important, and one might say the culmination was the firing, but I think for Bob Mueller to do a thorough and credible job and to report back to the nation in some way will be to tell us what other pieces are there or were there that we haven't seen yet. And this is one of the great challenges of an investigation, and particularly doing it in a way that is in the public view, because what Bob Mueller knows today is probably going to change by next Friday. And to have these iterations going out to the public and raising and lowering our expectations for a particular result is very often a mistake. And frankly, I think that's why the FBI guidelines tend to be what they are, which is we don't comment on pending investigations, because just like what Jim Comey learned last year with the Clinton matter, and again here with the risk of telling the president he was not the subject of an investigation, what if that changes tomorrow? Do I have a duty to then tell the nation something changed and the president is now the subject of an investigation? That's a problem.
You know, Ron, you talk about sort of the pieces of the puzzle here, and I wonder if Jared Kushner, Trump's son-in-law, who we know is going to be meeting with the Senate Intelligence Committee staff next week, if he could add to that, what do you want to learn from Kushner?
Well, I certainly would love to hear the scope of his relations. You know, at his core, like the president, this is a businessman, not a politician. So what business interests were potentially on the table as he was meeting with Russians? What were his prior relationships with Russian banks? And again, you know, there's nothing there. There's no there with him, with Jeff Sessions meetings. It could be these are all very innocuous. But you know, it brings me back to this essential question. Why is the president pushing back so hard? I get that he wants to have a clear picture and a clear way forward without Russia hanging in the air. But why is he pushing back so hard? It leaves you the impression that he's trying to hide someone or something or protect someone.
All right, Ron Hosko, thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.